Better leave it.
It gives you an
Oh, Lord.
option to continue or leave.
Okay. Uh, right. So, out of my people, I know Sarah didn't get to get her TOL done yesterday. Did anybody else do their TOL yesterday? Actually, get it completed.
I did. I just didn't get signed off.
Okay. All right. Guys, at the bottom of this, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Zoom, but you have the chat box. Everything's going to be at the bottom of the screen. You've got your mute, stop video, security, participants, chat box. There should be a little smiley face with a plus sign says reactions. If you click on reactions, you've got a green circle with a check mark for yes, a red with a X for no. There's a slower button, a faster button. There's a wave. There's a thumbs up. There's somebody laughing with tears. There's like, oh no face, a heart. And I guess that's a party thing in the corner. And there's the one that says raise hand if you want to raise your hand. So it's all in that little area. Everybody see that down at the bottom, reactions. And then more, let me see what more does. And that's where we go to breakout rooms. If I put you in breakouts, okay. All right, and then when you leave, I guess you just hit the red end out of Zoom when you leave. Okay, so Danielle, do you want to share your, she's like, no, your family assessment and case plan, the case plan and the safety plan. Did you feel like what you got made sense and went together based on, everything that you read?
I mean, it made sense and it did go together, but it wasn't, it was a case of basically a mother who had had her children taken previously. And so this was a new child, new baby that was just taken from the get-go. So it was one of those type of cases.
They took it, they didn't even do an assessment first before they took the child?
I mean, I didn't find, and I don't have all of the information, so I don't know.
Because I don't know if you guys remember that, if somebody's been terminated before and had their kids taken and they have another baby, you don't it's still an aggravated circumstance, but you don't necessarily have to take that newborn baby right off the bat. You could, unless there's, present, that
There
presence.
was drugs in the baby's system. So
Okay, then there was a reason. Okay, that's
yeah.
makes sense. So, but you'll still do the assessment, and then there will be some cases you could probably leave the child with those caregivers, and there are going to be times like you just said that you won't because of that. But yeah, now that makes sense because drugs in the system, so they did. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Thank you, Danielle. Anybody else have anything interesting with the case plan and your safety plan?
Mine was, how do I say it? I think maybe that the children had maybe been taken before. I'm not sure. But this case plan it's like the kids are in the home. And that the father had in the past had drug possessions and DUI arrests.
Okay.
So then, but this plan starts at the point where it's saying that, the father, he was using drugs in the past, he was arrested, blah, 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 blah. So the safety is, what were the impending threats that were, or how do I say it? The safety plan was to obviously protect the kids from the exposure to the father doing drugs.
Okay.
And he wasn't, getting arrested and having all that bad element in the house. So it was at the point where the safety plan was the father has to do all these certain things. That's what's controlling. He has to do drug and alcohol counseling and do drug testing at the day reporting center. He has to do psychological counseling, do some parenting classes, things like that. And so he's been doing that.
Good.
And then so the mother was like the protector.
Mhm.
She didn't really have any diminished factors. And the positive factor for her was that she's always been there. She's protected the children. They have 3 kids. And as far as for professional services, also in there that the kids go to counseling just to deal with general issues from the father, you know. So the father continues to go to his psychological counseling, do his drug and alcohol counseling, the parenting class, and he has to also another one of the controlling parts is that he has to maintain full-time employment and maintain suitable and safety housing for his family.
Okay.
So, I listed all the professional services that are listed in there, the safety plan that to control everything was all these things that the father has to do. And then say if like he missed a drug test or anything, or it would be, I put would be reported to CPS from the drug testing center, or if he missed any of his psychological or mental health or substance abuse counseling appointments. And then when it asked about, could this case be closed? And I had put yes down the road, with a lot of pending factors that he stayed clean and sober for so long, that, I didn't put a time limit on, and it said, who should be involved. So I put the CPS worker, his drug and alcohol counselor, his mental health provider, the day reporting center, and even, I guess, even the children's counselors too.
Okay. On yours and Danielle, did you guys see any goals on the case plan for your caregivers, or were they stated sort of like what we learned this week of how to write them up, or did you find them?
No, mine was written differently. It was more of what the court expects versus what the HHR expects. But goals were there. And I can't remember them specifically. And I forgot to bring my book into the conference room this morning.
That's fine.
But there was a good 4 or 5 goals at least for the mom.
Okay. How about you, Jeff?
My goal for the mother just had, um, continuing with I forget, they call it high parenting classes,
I parenting.
something like that.
Okay.
Um, to maintain her role as a mother, to protect the kids, to continue to do all her parental duties as she has in the past. And then for the father, the goals were maintain sobriety, maintain full-time employment, and, suitable housing, and also was to prove that he is able to handle his drug and alcohol problem, as evidenced by going to his education, his counseling, his drug testing. He also was attending some type of parenting class too.
Okay.
And I probably would have been put in there maybe to eliminate being involved in the criminal justice system, because obviously he was before, but it doesn't say that if he's on probation or parole or anything in here.
Oh, so you don't know.
Yeah. So, but I might have put that in there, try to eliminate all all interactions with the criminal justice system,
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Danielle. James taking over now.
Yeah, I mean, with the youth service side of it is that, did you all have an opportunity to look at a case plan with a safety plan and all that wrapped into it? No? Okay. It makes that a little bit hard to talk about if you didn't get to see one. Did you get to see a case plan?
Case plan and fast.
Okay. So what was going on with that one, Patrick? Because I mean, not all case plans, I mean, are all fast that have that, especially in youth services, may not have a safety plan with it.
Yeah, it was a lot of the age appropriate discipline, using safe at home and family therapy services. That's basically what I got from it. I don't have it
Okay.
pulled up right now, but
Yeah. Because I'm kind of looking at the TOL and all that and just kind of seeing what it is that, I mean, so what was the safe at home? What was the purpose of the safe at home being in there?
to educate the parent on parenting, basically at an age appropriate level and
Okay.
and all that.
Was there any other services linked to it or that you saw? I mean, do you remember what providers were working with the family?
Safe at home and KBC or something therapy.
Okay. And just trying to see how they go. So you didn't get one to see one with a safety plan in it. So based off of what it had is that you said you saw the fast. So was there any of the identified items on there? Was there any safety items that were identified?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay.
Family conflict was a 2.
Okay. So there was no safety plan or anything identified with it?
Not that they provided me with.
Okay. And they may not have.
There was 2 3s, high risk behavior.
Okay. So that's a safety item for a child.
Yeah, he threatened police with a knife.
Yeah. That's nice. Okay. So without, like I said, is that if they didn't provide the safety plan, because usually if there's the 2s and 3s that have been identified there, was there any other action since you said they threatened law enforcement? Was there like any court action, juvenile delinquency or anything like that?
Delinquency was basically a repeat of what they put for high risk behavior, almost.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like there probably should have been a safety plan attached with that to be reviewing while they went to case plan. So what did they, you said that the safe at home was to help the parent learn parenting and all that. So what was put into place for the youth to address like the high risk behaviors that you were talking about? Was there any services for that? Or you said KVC?
Yeah, they had like 4 KBC. So they had lasting solutions, family therapy, safe at home.
So lasting solutions was probably a therapy type or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Okay. And KVC, was that like an ASO type service or what?
Provider.
Mm. So, I mean, do you remember what it was that the KVC was in there doing?
Providing individual and family therapy.
Okay. That's interesting. All right. So were they let me just ask this because it could be that's how this is all being tied in. Was KVC the safe at home provider?
I'm pretty sure. I mean,
Yeah, because usually whenever, if they're linking them into doing the individual therapy and those type things in there with the safe at home, they usually wrap all that into that one program. And then that provider does a lot of those. That's why I was asking you, was there a thing there? Okay. So was there anything there? I mean, was the services that were put into place, did it appear to be addressing what the issues were set up with a family?
yeah, I mean, this was just the initial plan. So that one question that was like, have you seen any progress was hard to answer. But there's a lot of detail in here about what it's going to cover. I mean, I don't want
What we're just trying to see is that how, whenever was it the services that were put in place, did it match up with all the other stuff? Did it match up with what the your assessment said as what your issues were? And then were they putting into place
yeah.
and did they write the goals and stuff for them? Did the plan that you have that you're looking at, is it the new case plan that we talked about that new services has?
It's more description. Yeah, yeah. Here's
Okay.
goals to meet identified needs, and it starts with safety, and then it goes down to parenting and priority level.
Okay. So it sounds like if they talked about safety, then there probably was a safety plan that either they didn't give you to review or you know, they tied it into it. So as they go through there and you're looking at it, and what we're looking at now is that the goals that were selected, did it match up with what that you had? That's what I was looking at is to say, now in it, did you see anything that listed, you know, maybe looking at what strengths that the family had or each members had and how they were utilizing that?
Well, I mean, all I had to go off of was the fast, so I guess certain zeros would be labeled as a strength.
Okay, if they, but in the plan itself, you didn't see, or there was no mention of it or anything. Now, just out of curiosity, when they gave you this, is there anything on the case plan that had like the documentation on it, where people would put in their like, you know, met with a family on this date and this is what we talked and discussed and set up or anything like that? Like, did you see any contacts?
I was looking for that, but I did not see any of that.
Okay. And now, and usually they'll have those, but it may be in the fax itself. So in the record is probably where all those contacts and everything were. Okay. So was there anything in there that talked about what they needed to do in order for the case to close?
Um, she's gonna take the youth to get a psych eval. Uh, Kid was expelled, is now working to get back into school.
Okay. So education seems to be an issue there too.
Um, James, it says, well, I didn't mean to say his name, but ADHD and sees his regular medical doctor. Reports that medicine wears off around 6. Yeah, it's just there's
Okay.
not
All right.
much about that.
Let me ask this too. Is that an initial plan or is that you know, like a plan that's been in place for a little while? On your form, does it say the initial plan or is it
Eval.
okay, so it's an evaluation of what was going on. So they actually had to see it. So you were actually taking a look at the one that was there. The services were in place, the goals were developed. Everybody was in agreement. It was signed off on everybody.
No, there's no
Ah,
signatures.
so technically that plan then would not be a great plan because without those signatures and stuff like that, that's what validates the family saying that, yes, they understand what's expected of them, and they would understand what foster care candidacy meant for this process and all that. So all those things that we've talked about come into play on that form. So and you would think that it would be signed off on because that way they do it, but then you have a progress portion of it. So you actually got to see one that had the case evaluation. So, and how they went back and evaluated whether or not the goals that they had put into place were effective during that, or were they doing what they needed to do during that time frame. So on your progress down at the probably after each one of those goals that they set up, and they had a section that says progress down there. Did they write anything in that little blurb of an area?
Yeah, but I mean, they got a lot more goals than they do progress.
Okay, well, the progress is probably, like I said, if this was just a one-time thing, then they probably only evaluated it that one time.
Right.
So, but for that goal, did it talk about how the family was doing? What was, was the goals meeting what the needs of the family was, or were they going to revamp, or what?
It's kind of just them getting started. It's, starting to work with Safe at Home. Mom filed an incorrigible. Um, Mom is getting ready to work with a provider through KBC for parenting. Mom is still needs to contact Lasting Solutions to set up therapy appointments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because when you're looking at case evaluation, it means you hopefully, that was at least 90 days in that they were already, doing stuff. So hopefully a lot of those things were already taken care of and all that. So, but you all see here, how's this come into play? Because again, in order to be looking at our these evaluations, I wanted you all to see how these things are set up. Let me just ask this, Patrick, was the goals when they were written up, were they written up in like a SMART style, or how were the goals written? Was there something that was something specific there? Was there a measurability to it?
Um, they're kind. I mean,
Like without saying the name and all that, read one of the goals off that that the person wrote.
um, youth will ask for permission when she wants to leave home, and mom must approve where youth is going to stay. Mom will continue to work with her medical doctor concerning her anxiety. Mom and youth will work with Safe at Home, setting appropriate boundaries for handling family conflict and supervision.
All right. So, I mean, was that a goal, or was that
It's
the statement
yeah.
as to why they were involved, what the concerns were? All right. So on it again, without seeing your form and being able to take a look at it myself, to see, what was given to you, to see, okay, hey, where these things set out, what are they doing? What we're looking at is that does the family know what is being asked of them? That's the biggest part of it. And then is there anything in there that states that, that they're, they understand what's going on, and there's going to be like a way that they're going to do it. So in this one here, I guess in a way you can say it's somewhat there, because the kid's going to ask for permission from mom to go somewhere without leaving the house. Well, how are you going to measure that?
Right.
Mom, right? So it does have a measurability to it. And did it have a time frame on it? Like, is this just going to be a ongoing goal, or?
Didn't tell.
Okay. So basically what we wanted you all to do on these here, when you were looking at your case plans and taking a look at that, is that all those things that we talked about up until that point, we wanted you all to see that in practice. How does it work, and all that? Because your FAST itself is your assessment that gives you the game plan of as to what your issues are. And then what you're going to be doing is that when that case plan is developed, it should be developed off of that FAST, and your safety plan should be in place to control those items, so that way you can move towards bringing about the change. And that's what we wanted you all to be seeing in practice. I kind of like the old OJT type stuff, where you all get on job training to where you can actually see how things are happening. and then be able to piece those together. So I think these are a good thing for you to see. Sometimes you see good stuff. Sometimes you see things maybe, you know, go from there. Um, but did you have any questions there, Patrick? I mean, like when you were doing them, looking at over what was going on, did you feel that you had an understanding?
No, this one was kind of elementary. There was no time, like you said, it was hard to measure.
Okay.
The goals were vague.
And so question is, did they really take care of what the main issues were, or were they treating the symptoms or not? So, and I don't know, without knowing it or seeing it, we won't know that. But that's the point of getting you all to do that, to make sure that you get in there. Whenever you all are writing up your case plans, you got to remember, you need to put this in a way that if you're stepping away and somebody else is taking over, they understand what's happening, what's going on, what the purpose is, and all that. And then, and that way that person can just pick right up and keep going. Now, Tiffany, I think you said you didn't have a chance to do yours yet.
I did. I already submitted mine.
Okay. Well, let's talk about yours then.
Okay.
So on the same thing as we talked about in there, was there anything there that made the kid unsafe or the family?
This case plan was a case plan evaluation of a child who had already been in placement, returned from home. At this point in the case, he had had safe at home services for over a year that had closed, and he had JVOM through NIAP in there. And this plan was written shortly before he went back to placement.
Okay.
So basically he's had the same issues all along. The mom's issues are the same, the issues are the same. This case plan was written in December of 2019. The kid's in placement right now, and he's not going to be returning to his mother's home.
So was there any revamping? Did you see a revamp of the FAST or any of that to address it? And the issues you were talking about is you said from 2019, and they're the same issues going on. So obviously whatever we put in, or whatever was put into place, wasn't effective in order to address.
He would do better at times, and then not. He'd just drop off. And I don't think that the issues, the really grounding in the core of the issue of what was going on, the elephant in the room, was not something that mom was ready to address. And that's the big, it's not in the case plan, but I know that that's what the issue is.
Okay.
So
yeah, and so basically the safety is the kid had to be removed from the home. The kid could not be maintained in their home environment due to either mental health from mom or the child or whatever those issues were.
Yeah, there was verbal family conflict. Mom was concerned that it would become physical. I don't think that it ever did become physical.
So was there anything in there that where CPS was notified? Did you see anything there since?
It had not been. There had been CPS report. I know outside of it that there had been CPS allegations that had been decided as unsubstantiated.
Okay, so at least in this process here, when youth services had a concern, they made a referral to CPS. CPS came out and did their assessment and made a determination it didn't rise to the level of abuse and neglect by the parent. So were these behaviors, and that's the reason why I'm asking is because you're saying because of mom, you know, so obviously it's, if mom is the one who's unable or unwilling to address those issues, would that not be a CPS matter? Because
yes, but what was happening is the child was calling, was reporting and getting CPS referrals done as a means of manipulation.
okay. And sometimes that does happen too. when they get into those. So kids learn how to operate the system. But the question is, whenever they came out, obviously they felt that it didn't rise. So the concern about mom, and you said that mom was concerned about becoming physical. Is it because her going to be physical with the child, or the child physical with her?
The child physical with her.
Okay, so that changes that whole thing, and because then, so that puts it back onto the child's behavior that's causing these, not the parents' behaviors.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't think he ever became actually physical. He was very emotionally manipulative, but
Yeah.
I don't think he ever became physical. And there's a size differential. Mom had a history of domestic violence, so she was intimidated, and she said that in front of her kids I don't know how many times, and was like,
Yeah.
but but so I think again that becomes part of mom's issues that she needed to address in counseling, was her not having the feeling of assertiveness enough to be able to say, no, you're my kid.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then the biggest thing that we need to do is that making sure that we understand what's going on. So when you got your case plan, did you see the FAST that went with it?
No, there wasn't one.
Okay. Was there a safety plan attached to the case plan?
No, but I know JVOM had one, and I know when he was in Safe at Home, he had one there
Okay.
too.
Because the reason why I'm asking that is that part of when we're doing case plan or when we're doing our case planning, and especially since you're talking about the evaluation portion of it, when we're talking to our families about this, that that safety plan should be part of that review process to ensure that we're meeting all those needs. That's why I was asking, were you provided all this information or not?
Yeah.
And if not, then you're not.
I've just got like 5 pages of a case plan.
Okay. And so in your case plan in it though, is it the new case plan that we have in youth services? Like the form that you all have access to
Yes.
now? Good. So in it, it states what those issues are.
Mhm.
Okay. And then it breaks it down into some of the goals. Just out of curiosity, read one of the goals off to me.
Mother will ensure that child is up every morning and ready for transport for her to take to school.
Okay. So mom was having trouble getting the kid up for school.
Yeah.
And
And
so
he
they
would get
made,
up and he'd get ready, and then at the last minute, he'd just decide that he wasn't going.
okay. So okay. Remember we talk about, leaving the fox in charge of the hen house?
Mhm.
And all that. So why would we, have that if mom was having the issues of getting that to occur? So again, it may not be effective into what it's supposed to be addressing and those issues there. All right. Beyond that then, okay, so again, making sure that whatever those issues that have been identified in our FAST and that we have control in our safety plan, we need to be making sure that those get put into our case plans, and those case plans have to be effective. Now, is there signatures on your case plan?
Not on this copy, but he printed it out, so I don't know if there's one in the paper copy or not.
Okay. So again, remember those signatures are important because in it, it shows that they've been reviewed by the family's agreeing to these. It shows that they've had input into it and all this. So that's why those are good. And it comes down to, since the kid is out of the home, that one blurb that talks about foster care candidacy. And it says that we understand that this plan is being done, and that if we, don't comply or don't, do whatever, it could result in the child being removed from the home. So that's them acknowledging they understand the importance of this plan. And so in this plan here, so since the kid's out of the home, there still should be a safety plan, because now what there should have been is an out of home safety plan.
Yeah,
to-
I don't have the current one for him being in placement
Okay.
right now.
So that'll be
Um,
something that needs to be
Right
with it,
now,
because
he's going through the process of doing checking into the home of the cousin that's going to be taking him in.
okay. All right, so you got a lot of work that's going on there. So in it there, the safety is being addressed and all that. I think I remember you talking about this one where they just ordered the kid in. Is this the one where the parent died?
No.
Okay, not the same one then. Okay, so they're doing I guess it'll be a relative kinship study of that. person. So it takes a little bit because it has to go through a process and be approved and all that. Now,
The court's already approved for him to go to this cousin's house.
okay. Yeah. So, and of course, they're doing all that. So all we have
Mhm.
to do was there anything like a walkthrough, anything there where they did a walkthrough of the home or?
I think Rob just did that in the last couple of days.
Okay. So those things are being done then. So was there anything in it that talked about towards the end, the statement as to what needs to change or anything like that in order for this case to close?
Um,
Or, to say that they've achieved what it is that they're trying to go for?
um, child needs to improve his grades to B's and C's with no unexcused absences. They need to attend family counseling, and they will work with JVOM.
Okay. So, and you said
And
this was, go ahead.
This is an old plan.
Okay.
So
In that case evaluation, you said you were working it. So when they did an evaluation to it, was there anything in it where they stated the progress of how the family was doing?
no,
That makes it kind of
the
hard.
progress square are blank.
Okay. So, and that may be something that, again, because remember, that document is going to be a live document for you all when we talk about the case plans. You're going to be putting in that evaluation. Now, Tina, tell me correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't CPS moving over to using that same case plan that U Services it has?
Yes, I believe that's
Okay.
what's going to happen. Yes.
So you all have been introduced to that case plan?
No, well, we just used what the new stuff that Paul put in there. It looks different from what I've seen before, so I'm assuming it's the same, the new
Okay.
one.
Yeah, the
I've
case
got the
plan.
form here.
Yeah, the case plan, what this case plan
Like,
shows, at
looks
least
kind of
what,
like that.
Kinda, but not, it wasn't
Okay.
long. It was regular. And it
Okay.
had the caregivers, the children.
Yeah.
Then you had to put protective
Yeah.
factors, diminished, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're using the same thing, just it's going to be used in a different way. This is the way
Mhm.
they're going to streamline the protective services, it looks like. So either way.
Yes.
So in this one here, but that document is going to be a live document and that you all are going to be able to use. So as you go through there in that progress section, there's a little thing that you'll put the date and then you're going to put in your evaluation of that progress during that one. And it'll be ever lying. And that's where a lot of your contacts and stuff will go. So either way, we'll talk more about that whenever they get to it. So I don't want to do that, but it sounds like at least with them, they have those, again, maybe they didn't have either the updated plans or stuff. So, and I'm going to ask this, Tiffany, just out of curiosity, since they moved the kid and put the kid out of the home and put them into placement,
Mhm.
did they redo the FAFSA to reflect that?
I don't think he has.
So again, remember, and when there's those substantial changes, either good or bad,
You have to
that
check.
FAFSA has to be redone in order to reflect those changes. So
Mhm.
everybody can see it. So, okay. All right, Tina, I think I covered it all for at least you service side.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to share.
And I'll be right back. I gotta.
All right. I want to share. Where's my share sound? And share. All right. To my Zoom. So, what are you guys seeing? I want that.
I see a PowerPoint slide that says Rosa time study on it.
Okay, because I was wondering where all you guys went for me because you're not here. So let me get rid of this. maybe you will come back. I don't know. I don't want to stop sharing. All right. So again, guys, if you get a Rosa time study, it's program G, activity 16. Hopefully you do not get one of those. All right. Go down here, and next slide should say core competencies. These are things that you should be learning during this portion of training. So the word competence is going to be defined as the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. Competencies are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed for you to perform your job successfully. They define not only what you must know and do, but also how you're going to do it. So these are your core competencies here. You're going to apply social work values, principles, and practice, including respecting the self-determination, dignity, and individuality of the family you're working with. You're going to be able to understand the importance of effective preparation, case assessment, and timely case management as the foundation of casework, intervention. You're going to be able to write concise, detailed, and relevant documentation in a timely manner. Remember, if you don't document, it didn't happen. And then understand the importance of conducting routine and timely case reviews, like James was talking about with those. If there's a significant change and you have to do things, you have to change. For youth services, you got to update that fast. For CPS, you got to redo your case plan if something major changes. They have to be updated, redone, and done in a timely manner. And you got to do those timely reviews every 90 days or maybe sooner if there's some kind of major happening in that case that requires you to redo it again. You're going to reassess those case plans, service interventions, and then make those appropriate modifications. And those are objectives, kind of goes along with it. I'll let you guys read that. Give you a couple seconds there to read it. Everybody get that read? All right, again, here's the chart here or your casework process. We start with getting that referral. It comes through centralized intake most times. For CPS, you're going to get, if you get assigned, you're doing, it's not a family functioning assessment. It's going to be called your intake assessment or initial assessment. If you have to do a 7-day protection plan, you'll do that the first day you're out there meeting the family. If not, you've got the 30 days to finish up your initial assessment, and you may or may not open a case. You may or may not find maltreatment. You may or may not, have some impending safety threats. If you do, you open the case, it gets assigned to the ongoing worker, which goes to family assessment, and you're going to do what we talked about all this week. Then you're going to create your case plan and put in some services that go with that case plan to help make those changes for the family. Right here is the family case plan evaluation. And you keep doing this every 90 days until you get to the point where you can close the case. And we talked about it yesterday for CPS. When do you know you can close the case, guys? Type it or just speak. How do you know that it's okay to close your case and we can get out of it?
When the kids are safe.
Dangers have been eliminated.
Yeah, changes have been made, right? We know that those caregivers have made those changes. They no longer need us. We know the kids are safe. We don't have to be there anymore. And then you would have your case closure. Yes, definitely. Thanks, Zach and Sarah. Life of a youth service case. Is James back?
Yeah, I's
All
here.
right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we've talked about these. If you all look at it, CPSU services basically has the same process. You go through it. We've already covered the intake. So here's our invitation to the family. And then the referral came in. So either somebody or some deemed that there was a need for us to be involved. We go out there and the family's agreement. So we completed our FAST. That's our assessment phase. Where we gathered information and made a determination or have a better understanding as to what's going on in the family. And then from there, in between the completion of FAST and the development of case plan, we have that safety planning portion that we want to cover any of those pieces that needs to be taken care of and to control whatever those is so that we can do the least restrictive thing, which is try to keep kids into their homes. Once we've done that, we in conjunction with the family, and I wish they would still put this in here, in conjunction with the MDT, we would develop the case plan. So that way everybody's in agreement as to what we're going to be working on doing all that. Then we're going to be, after we get this case plan done or the framework of it, we're going to put the services in place in order to start that. And then we're going to take a look at it and take that journey with them to see, how things are going, and we can be changing and adding and subtracting as we need to according to this, if our case plan is done what it's supposed to, if we've actually identified what those needs of the family are. We're not talking about the symptoms, we're talking about the needs. We've identified those, we can probably be making better progress because we're not going through all these things. So once we do that, our case evaluation is going to be basically the same thing as we're looking at it to see, are we making progress? Are we not? Is there things that we need to add or anything? And after we do that, if we've done everything we need to do and there's no safety concerns and the family doesn't need us to be involved anymore, we can sit there and talk about closing the case. Which is hopefully where we can be doing it pretty quick. Now, unfortunately, depending on if there's court involvement or not, makes the determination how fast these processes can occur. So.
Okay. Any questions for either one of those? The life of a youth service case, life of a CPS case.
So what we've talked about so far, either CPSU services, do you all remember these different pieces of this as we talk about? Because remember, we talk about these in foundations. These are steps that we've built upon. And so this is your pyramid, is that we start with the one and we're working our way up. And so we just want you all to make sure you understand, because eventually this is where we're going towards.
And just to let y'all, James, that when I'm sharing, I don't see anybody now at all because it took you guys away. I just have a little tiny box.
Okay.
And so I can't see anybody. I can see the PowerPoint, and then I can see my curriculum over here, and everybody else. I just have a little tiny black box that says end meeting, leave meeting, and cancel for Zoom. And that's it. All right.
Okay.
All right. So guys, do you guys know the difference, or do you think there's a difference between case planning and case management? Someone take a chance. Don't
Got
make
a
me
chance
sing.
on
Me? That's what I was getting ready to sing, James. I really was.
It's almost like pre and present, right?
Yeah,
Like
kind of.
you're thinking about where you're going, and then you actually go there and you start working there.
Yeah. Case planning is like what's in the possibilities. It's a possibility as it provides a route for reaching those desired outcomes. And, you're planning it you're basing it on a comprehensive assessment. It's going to be involving recognizing patterns of behaviors, with your families over time in a broad context of needs and strengths. It's, rather than focusing on the incident that brought the juvenile into the attention of youth services or a JPO, you're not really focusing on what brought them to our attention in CPS. You're just focusing on those behaviors and if they're changing over time. Are they increasing those strengths that were not strengths, and they need them to be strengths. Case planning has to be done with your client and provide individualized services that promote either your, caregivers or the juveniles' strengths and advance well-being and assist your family in achieving their objectives. So just like Patrick said, that is what you want to see happen. And then the case management is you managing the case, right? Managing. So my guys, we talked about if you guys are the worker and you're managing a case, what are some of the things you guys are going to be doing with your clients as you manage the case? Can y'all remember? I think we talked about them over and over all week.
As far as for ongoing or
Uh-huh.
either,
Yeah.
home visits, reviewing, going to court, obviously updating or changing the case plans if anything new happens.
Okay.
We're supposed to see, theoretically, see the clients once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that we have one case manager that does strictly treatment court or something like that. And we have one case manager that does a lot of the more of the adoption stuff.
Okay.
Um,
So what are those 4 E's too, Jeff? Add those in there with it. What are you also doing with your caregivers?
hold on. Engage, encourage, employ, empower.
Yeah, we're doing all those. Yes. And you're going to be, seeking, advocating for your clients, and you already said monitoring those services, seeing what's working, checking, updating. Definitely. Yes.
We're going to be the cheerleaders.
Yeah. This process is going to enable you guys in an organization to coordinate efforts, with all these outside entities that you're using, like the ASO providers, your therapists, safe at home, whatever, any of those things you're using, you're able to work with them together. Everybody's on the same page to get your clients where you need them to be, or customers. For customers, since we're supposed to be changing it to customers, I still can't get used to saying customers, but
I just say families.
families. Yeah, families. Case management limits problems arising from fragmentation of services. It will, if you're doing good case management, it might eliminate staff turnover and inadequate coordination among providers. If you're doing really good case management, successful case management practice is going to ensure that your family service providers are all working cooperatively and effectively. If you don't know what your right hand's doing and your right hand doesn't know what your left hand's doing, then you're never going to be on the same page. So kind of think of it that way. You all have to be working together with those families to be successful. You're also going to be assessing what as a case manager? What's those 3 things on that CFSR, guys, that you need to be assessing always? 3 things on the CFSR, that paper we've looked at 100 times from the very beginning.
Safety, definitely.
That's one. Mm-hmm.
Is it permanency and well-being?
Yes, sir. All right, Patrick, go. All right. Go, Patrick.
The 3 paramount things of everything you all will be doing throughout the life of your case.
Yep. Safety, permanency, and well-being. There it is. Child and Family Services Review. So we're talking about in-home case management. This is the curriculum for this starting today and all through next week. We're going to be trying to provide you guys with a framework to be an ongoing worker. Even if it's youth services, if you're carrying a youth service case, you're the ongoing worker. But you're still going to maintain that safety, permanency, and well-being for your children and for the families.
Yep. And this becomes anything that you all do. These will be everything you're going to be looking at, no matter what phase of this case you're in. Your
Mhm.
case evaluation phase, you're going to be looking at this. Your assessment phase, you're going to be looking at this. So it's important. And Tina and I will probably be, sitting here and telling you all about this, because we can't, and to use the analogy, pound it into your head is this, because even the CFSR, when we talk about it, it shows where we have weaknesses in it.
Mhm.
That's why we do these reviews. And one of those weaknesses that we have, or that we seem to have from time to time, is identifying safety. People go out there, they go to a home, and they just don't catch what's going on.
What's going on? Yeah.
So that's why we keep talking to you about this. But permanency,
So why do you
we're
guys
shift-
think you're not catching what's going on? Because James just brought that up. Why do you think workers go out and maybe you don't understand or catch what's going on, or what the safety issue is? Just
I think we mentioned at one time, sometimes you get too hyper focused on what the referral was on, and you're not looking at all aspects.
exactly. Yes, Jocelyn. It could be. Yes. I like it. Yes. Sorry, James.
no, that's fine, because that's what we're going in. And sometimes, people are uncomfortable, especially new workers coming in, they're like all gun shy and stuff like that. And not having confidence in their ability. But the biggest thing is take the time. All those things that we've talked about for you all to do is that if you do your proper preparation, and you're going to
Mhm.
have an idea of what's going on, what's happened and all that, that's going to lead you to know more, and then making sure that you actually not just ask questions and just kind of like skim over them, but actually try to understand it from that standpoint. So a lot of times we talk about, people will talk about drug use. And so some people I don't know how to ask this, or I don't know how to do it. So do you use drugs? No. Okay. And then they just leave it at that. And then they don't explore. A lot of things, what we find out is prescription drugs are one of the biggest abused issues that we have,
Mhm.
that's going on. And those are prescribed. Alcohol, it's a legal drug, and all that. But we just assume that, hey, it's legal, they can do this. So we don't explore it. I say, so if I wanted to know, I'd say, hey, Tina, you talked about earlier that you like to go out and have a drink and all that. If you don't mind me asking, how often do you like to drink?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and we talk about it, and then you can talk about what you like to drink. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, what is it and stuff. So again, that's you all probing, getting that additional information, because that stuff is important during this process, because it will help you identify those safety issues that are there. It'll also help you to identify whether or not the well-being of that child and that family are being done, and then whether or not the permanency is. If the child's going to be in danger of being moved from a home, being passed from family to family to family, and all these other things. So you probably will get tired of hearing us talk about these three things.
But it's your job. This is the whole focus of your job.
Yep.
So. Yep. So, and your primary role as being those case workers or the case manager over your cases, whether it's youth service or whether it's CPS, is you're going to always be trying to engage your families in a positive working relationship, so you can reach those safe and reach a safe and stable home with a permanent environment for those kids. That's what you're striving to get at: safety, permanency, and well-being. So now I think they're going to break it down a little bit with safety. Go to the next slide here. So Child and Family Services Review, safety intervention for Child Protective Services and for youth services. Case is always going to be continual process, which will conclude with your case plan evaluation, and hopefully eventually your case is going to close, whether you've kept the family together or reunited them back together, or they've been terminated, or the kid has to go to some placement somewhere. I mean, eventually your case will close.
Let me ask, I know my youth service people, we talked about this. I don't know if you've talked with your people, Tina. When we talk about safety, part of the CFSR, we keep talking about the Child Family Service Review. This is the thing that goes through and it checks out to see if we're doing the things that we need to do. Where do we need to make improvements at in order to make us more effective in our jobs? And part of the safety things that they've looked at is making contact with our families. Okay. Do you all know from the last CFSR what the percentage was of when kids were in placement that we actually went and saw our parents while the kids were in placement?
Wasn't it like 5% or something?
Yes, 5%
Yep.
of seeing families when the kids are in placement. So let me ask this of you. How do you know if the home is safe for that kid to return back to if you're not even going to that home?
Exactly.
And West Virginia has the highest percentage of permanent or placement.
Yes. We lead the nation in congregate care. And of course, we're
Mhm.
going through our growing pains with that when we're talking about the DOJ and the agreements and all this stuff. So again, we're looking at trying to do the least restrictive possible, but not saying that you do it. But again, how do you know if a kid can return home if you're not even looking at the home for them to return back to? So that encompasses not only safety, but permanency. And all that. So you see how all those things tie together when it comes to you all actually doing it. So I don't know, the CFSR, I think we're going to show that to them later, aren't we, Tina?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
And
So I won't go any more into it then.
yeah, I was gonna play on that a little bit too. Whether it's a youth service case with a kid in placement in residential or wherever, or if it's CPS and they're in foster care or kinship relative and stuff. It says in policy we're supposed to see the kids. Make those face to faces where they're at, where they're living at. So you're seeing them in placement, once a month at least to see how they're going where they're at that time. But also when they're having those you might want to think outside the box a little bit, because sometimes when they're having those supervised visits or they're getting to go for a home visit, that might be a good time to do your visit with the whole family as a whole, to see what it's like when the kid is having that visit with the parents. Because like James said, if you're never, I mean, it's okay to go see the parents and the kids aren't there and you kind of see what's going on. That's good as well. But thinking outside the box, I want to see what it's like, when they start having those visits and the kids going home for the weekend, or, I want to pop in and kind of see how that's going. If I was the case manager,
Yep.
because they can tell you anything. But seeing is also believing sometimes too, kind of observing, how they're getting along, what's going on. And I'm not saying make it a surprise visit. It could be a scheduled visit, but you know, when you're thinking about
One,
reunifying, try to do some visits then when the kids are with their parents,
Yep.
caregivers.
I think one of the biggest issues that workers have when it comes to safety is over reliance on their service providers to assure safety instead
Yes.
of them doing it.
Mhm.
So again, your providers are there to assist and they can be that, but it's really your all's job as the case manager to do that, because that's what we're talking about is
Mhm.
case management. We're going to be talking about what y'all need to do regarding that. So that's just one of the pieces. I think, y'all get a bunch of cases on your caseload, you get helter skelter going every which way. And next thing you know, the stuff like that occurs. So
Yes. And I'm going to the next slide. So the next one's going to be about permanency. Um, Again, all this goes together hand in hand. You're focusing on keeping the kids safe. If you're going to reunify, you want to make sure the home is safe. We just talked about that. Permanency, and it occurs with the family's involvement with child protective services or with youth service cases. And it's just to maintain a child's safety in that home positively, influencing the quality of a child's permanent relationships. You're working towards their cultural identity and their sense of self. Again, the rights of the family, rights of children, considering their cultural identity, considering how they feel as well. So that your planning for permanency is going to include establishing and or continuing lifelong connections for that kid. So you're going to help foster relationships with their caregivers, maybe with siblings. They may have half siblings, other extended family members. Maybe they were involved with something in the community, their church or whatever. You as a case manager, you want to foster and keep those connections together, even if they're still not in the home for that period of time. You still want to keep them connected.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's important, guys? And then I'll let James, I know James wants to talk. So, Why do you guys think it's important to keep these children connected, even if you've removed them from the home for a while, connected to their siblings, their caregivers, extended family members, community things? Why is that important?
So that they don't lose some of their self-identity.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Again, to roll off what Tina's saying is a lot of these kids, they have to have some type of plan as to what's going on. Just imagine if you thought that you were there and then you're in limbo and trying to figure out where you are. And then all of a sudden you turn 18 and we're like, okay, we're done with you. See you later. What do those kids go do? Who are they connected to? Who's their support groups?
Probably
Yes.
a bad peer group.
Well, more than likely, what we have seen is 90+% of the kids that have been removed from the home and have been terminated from their parents and stuff like that, upon turning 18 because they don't have any connections or anything, end up going back to that home environment where they just was removed out of.
And
So-
it's that light at the end of the tunnel concept too.
Well, the problem is that they have no connections, so they go back to the only thing that they know, whether it's bad or not. At least they have somebody there. So keep that in mind when you're making these connections with your family. We talk about permanency here. We're trying to link these kids into it. So if we can, we want to keep them connected to their families. And if by chance they're not going to go back home to their bio parents, there could be other family members or people there. And the other problem that we suck at too is keeping kids who have been separated and are in different homes and keeping them connected to each other and having their visits and doing all that, because that in itself is something that these kids, when they turn 18, I remember we talk about, getting these people set up to have the support system on the outside when we're no longer involved and all that. Here's where this comes into play, us connecting them to something to feel as they're part of that. Some people can sit there and they have lifelong connections to their community. Think about with you all, how long have you all lived in your areas that you've lived in? Are you connected to them in some way or the other? And just think about it. If when you were new and you first moved into that area, how did you feel? So, but again, ultimately is where you're going to see where these they themselves fit in. That's where the permanency is going to come into.
And that's where we're going to next. The from permanency to family and child well-being.
Yes.
So we're doing the well-being of the child. That's going to be dependent upon those caretakers' ability to meet a child's physical, to meet their health, their mental health, their behavioral health, their educational needs, maybe even cultural needs. So you, as that caseworker, you have to make every effort to evaluate the children's and even the adults' needs in these areas. And if you're not, then you're not doing a really good job, and and you're failing the families. And you're going to be doing this throughout the life of the case. You're going to be processing and addressing identified needs as part of your case management activities.
Mm-hmm. Again, well-being is looking at it. It covers a lot of ground. We're talking about the educational, the medical, all those things that we need to be making sure that, that we're connecting them. Again, these kids, are they coming in here? There's certain advantages and stuff like that kids have, especially when they're in care, and they age out and stuff like that. That you have Chafee and Modify that can be potential things that they could use for education or transitional living, and those type programs and stuff. So it's important for you all to really assess what the needs of your family is, so that way, or your kids that you're going to be working with, so you can properly be working those plans at the end.
And unfortunately, certain counties in West Virginia do not have an abundance of things like that you can use, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I think it's in a couple of counties in West Virginia, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know. But it's not available everywhere, which could be a good thing for a child if you have a case where a kid needs mentoringship, a good positive role model in their life. and you may have to search out things like that through other means like churches or just a friend, maybe.
Yep.
Tutors. I don't know.
All those things, but I mean, even then too, is that we're even talking about the medical needs of a child. Is we have those things, and I know I'm trying not to jump into when kids come in our custody yet, because we're going to be going to there, but that's part of it. Is even whenever we become involved with a family and
they're
we're
not.
assessing,
Yeah.
we still have to assess what are the needs of those kids and all that. Are they being met? A lot of times we see a lot of kids have trouble at school and all that because of the simple thing of not having glasses to
Yep.
be able to see, or kids having dental issues because their teeth are rotted out in their mouths and stuff like that.
Too
So
much
they're
Mountain
having
Dew.
issues. Yeah. But again, that's where the
Oh.
assessment comes into. We're looking at all those things. Mental health is one of those other ones. Youth services, you are going to be looking at that. Not only the mental health, but how they get along within the school system, how they get along with their peers, how they fit in, and all those things.
Yes.
That's how they're connected to all this. Now, one thing I will say about the youth services, especially when it comes to the CFSR, the federal government, they treat youth service cases the same as they do CPS when it comes to these evaluations. So that's why youth services has went through a big revamp over the last several years of what they need to do in order to validate, showing this is what we're doing to assess safety. This is what we're doing for all these things. So you're kind of see it streamlined along the way with what CPS is. So those forms, CPS, you are going to be using those same forms that youth services when we call the immediate safety threat forms. You all call them what right now? Present and pending dangers?
No, I had to. My group has learned the new terms
Oh,
because
good.
I had to go. Remember, I told you I changed my curriculum daily
Yep.
as
Okay.
Paul was redoing it.
So, but
Yeah.
that's going to be good because
Yeah.
that streamlines the same thing is that when youth services and CPS are talking to each other, you all are using the jargon that each other understands. And stuff
Yes.
like that. So then it allows for that streamline of the two entities to work together. Really, if you look at it, we both have the same thing. The only difference with CPS is you all are assessing abuse and neglect. Youth services, they're identifying it and then trying to keep it from occurring or whatever, and then reporting it. So they're not really focused on abuse and neglect. They're more focused on the safety of the child, the family, and the community, but they're still assessing that safety side.
Sure. Yes. And again, making sure that you are addressing the well-being for the families and the children is also going to help reduce risks while increasing your safety and protective factors in the family. And that's the new words. They're protective factors, James. Yeah. My new word. Protective factors. No longer capacities, it's factors. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that in my youth service stuff.
Okay. Anybody know what this is? Heard
Nope.
of it? Ever had a class on it? Just curious. Maybe Tiffany.
We call
No?
this child-centered family focus.
Child-centered family focus.
Yep.
This is family-centered practice. This is what you guys should be practicing always. And why it's called family-centered is because we want to keep families together.
No.
Yeah, we really do.
Come on now. You're going to take away my $600 per child that I remove.
Yeah, that extra kickback we get for taking kids.
And that's a joke, everybody.
It is a joke because we have heard that from people before, that we only take kids because we get some kind of kickback. CPS workers get extra money on the side for every kid you take. It's not true. Not true. So again, we want to achieve the goal of safety, permanency, and well-being for our children and for those families that we're working with. So if you are using family-centered practice, it's going to be the best practice to use to reach these said goals. Again, we've been beating this in: family engagement, family's perspective, their worldview of themselves, starting where they're at. What else we got? Starting where they're, being considerate of their culture, how they feel, how they see things, maybe how they were raised, taking all those things in consideration.
Did they did they take, or, and I can't remember, did you all have to do the Somalia family?
They did.
Okay. So this kind of goes into a little bit of that when you're looking at it, because you have a different culture, different perspective, different everything that comes opposite of maybe what you all are used to, and then what your laws and stuff and like all that is. So we're still trying to understand it from the family side of it.
Yeah. So, you know, we've been talking and talking and talking for weeks about um, family engagement and talking about uh, realizing what your own biases might be when you're walking into a situation and trying to chuck that to the back of your mind and let it go. So you can have an open mind when you're working with families. So you can ask better questions, more open-ended questions, and get more information to better serve that family you're working with, to keep the kids safe and, you know, keep the family together. Um, so children and families, you know, are going to, you know, they should be meaningfully, I can't even say the word, engaged in all aspects of the service process. Again, you know, uh, with my people, and I'm sure you did it with yours, you know, whatever decisions we make, we should be making it with the family. They should have input in it. We need to get their, and again, you know, Jeff said it earlier, the 4 E's: employ, educate, empower, engage. And if you're having that good motivational interviewing, you know, got those good skills, and you've built this good rapport with this family, they're going to open up to you and you're going to learn things, and you can use those things to help um, get the services that they need and keep in this. It's called family centered practice, guys. You're, you know, again, it's on this chart, and I'll just read some of them. You know, there's active involvement from that youth and the families in that decision making. We're respecting the family's culture. We're respecting, and you know, we have mutual honesty. We're not making promises. Do not make promises. We don't lie. We don't try to skew things. But we do it in a polite way. We do it in a respectful way, you know, but they need to know everything that could happen, you know, if they don't do certain things. But it's not, doesn't mean that we threaten them. If you don't do this, we're going to take your kids, or, you know, it's all in how you present uh, the material, present it to them. Make sure you're honoring families' rights. Again, choice. Everybody has choices. There's consequences to choices, and they could be good consequences, and they might be very bad consequences. Families and kids need to know all sides. Um, Developing partnerships with youth and families. Um, you know, so like even youth services, they're working with that youth because that's what got them involved with it. It's a youth service case, but you're involving their families as well. So when the kids go back to that family, um, if the families are able to handle those behaviors, or um, you know, have the things that they need to take care of their kids and keep them safe. You're also learning from each other. Um, and every family is not the same. You may have similar youth and youth services that have, you know, different things going on, and you might have similar families with CPS and kids, but everybody's situations are different. You know, even if it's all drug cases, doesn't mean every plan is going to be exactly the same, because everybody's individualized. They all have different needs. And you always want to build on strengths and the confidence, you know, always try to find the strength, no matter how small or little it is. Bring it out at the very beginning, play on it, talk about it. It's going to help. You know, a person doesn't always want to hear all the negative things, all the things they've done wrong, or, you know, how bad life is. They appreciate being acknowledged for some good things that they had done. So, I mean, I know I would. So I don't know if you had anything else with this part or not, James, but I'll let you.
No, I mean, basically, we've talked about this here about being child-centered family focused, and what the youth services went to is our focus is on our youth service client, but or we're centered on that, but we are also ensuring that we're addressing it with the family and addressing whatever those issues are. So again, we use the old analogy of putting a car on the road. You get a brand new car and you drive it down the road and all that. And of course, you know how our roads are here in West Virginia. They're all potholes and everything like that. What happens to that vehicle after a short while?
Anybody? So what
It
happens
get-
to the vehicle, guys? What happens to it?
Wears down.
It gets knocked out of line and all that. So it has all those issues that come about. So what do? We put it in the shop and then we fix that and get it fixed. What do we do though? We turn around and take that vehicle and we put it right back on that same road of where we had those issues and stuff like that. So what we're trying to do now is when we talk about the family focus is that while that child is being fixed, that car is being fixed and all that, we're also addressing and fixing that road, which is our parents, and fixing that problem that has led to what these concerns and these things are. So we're hitting them both at the same time with the idea, hopefully, is that they don't transform into becoming CBS cases and all that.
Hopefully.
But that's what we usually talk about when we talk about the family centered practice, and just again,
Uh-huh.
understanding it from the family's point of view.
Yes. Any questions about family centered practice before we move to the next slide? Giving you a chance. I'll give a couple seconds in case we're putting something in the chat box. Okay, moving on. Reframing basic values and beliefs. You have the old model and we got a new model. Old model used punishment when families did not progress or they didn't progress fast enough. You know, do you guys think simply punishing someone for a mistake is going to make a positive impact always, or completely make them change their ways just because you punish them?
Sometimes when you look at it is that you get a young kid and all that, and you tell them, not to do something. Sometimes that young kid, and when they're young, will actually listen. Well, what about the ones that don't?
They'll rebel.
And then they go and they have to touch that little hot iron, don't they? Or put the fork in the socket
The red
just to
button.
see. Yeah. So you go into those. So what works or what was be doing beforehand isn't quite the same is that. So we were just basically, we were being punitive to families. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you.
And then we're going to give you this service and that service. And if you do these things, then you get to keep your kids.
Yeah.
And then guess what? We see them again.
And unfortunately, we were just throwing the same type of things out there. Well, because it fit this. It worked before, so I'll just use this again. So I'm just going to throw life skills and parenting and all that at our families. We were just kind of throwing things at it and then saying what fixes. So now what we're trying to do is we're getting out of that model and actually saying, look, let's identify what the root cause of what's happening, why this is going on, and then properly, put things into place to address those. Again, least restrictive. So we're not making people feel like they have to jump through hoops and all that.
Right. And also the old model was like, I feel like you remember the game show Beat the Clock. Some of you might, it was based on the hand of a clock. You only had a certain amount of time to get some things done. And then when you did home visits, the worker would just come into the home and have a shotgun a bunch of fire questions, a certain, for every time it's the same questions for every family they went to, and they wrapped it up in 20 minutes, but they never learned anything about that family. They just, they had these certain questions and got those answered, got in, got out, made their face to face, they really weren't working with them. And it was like, beat the clock, got to get it done. It's crazy. So old model, categorical, unconnected services, just like James said. You put whatever it fit for this family, so we're going to put this in because it's not kind of similar. But again, we talked about all families are individual. Just just because they have a similar problem, that root of that problem could be totally different, and they're going to need different services uh, to help get to the root of that problem. Um, just because they're using drugs. Yeah, they may need detox or NA at some point in time, but might at the beginning it may not be the right time for it. It could, well, why did they begin using drugs? You got to ask those questions. Why did they start doing this? What led up to this? That's the problem we're really trying to get at. Yes, do we want them to get off drugs? Of course we do. That's not, of course we want them off the drugs, but we got to figure out what caused them to use drugs in the first place. Because if you don't fix that, they can do NA, they can get detox. And again, what is it? 7 times they relapse, or is it more now? They're going to relapse anyway. It's like part of recovery. So
But part of the old way too in this, when we talk about this, is we told families what they were going to do.
yes,
We didn't get anything from them to say,
no
hey,
input.
yeah, how do we feel about this, or get there into it. And so we were just basically saying, here,
Here, you do this, and didn't ask them, we didn't have conversations with them.
we know best, right? We're the social workers.
Again, little family input in the old way into the plan and services. We created the plan for them. We didn't talk to them about it, did not get their input or anything. Didn't consider their work schedules, didn't consider, other things that might be going on in their lives. You either, this is when you're going here, and this is when you got to do this, and if, dad worked, 12-hour shifts, too bad. If he didn't do it, then you weren't compliant and you failed. It's crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. I don't care if you've got to work or not. You're going to be here for this service.
Hmm.
If you don't do it, you failed it.
That's the old way, guys. New model, families are going to be engaged in ways relevant to the situation and sensitivity to the values of their culture. We are going to consider, their culture, consider, their feelings, because it's their family, right? It's their family. The old way was also child rescue philosophy. We're just rescuing children. That's all we had in our mind. Oh, we had to go save the kid. We had to save the kid. Now it's not seen as child saving, but as supporting and strengthening families. Of course, we don't want the kids hurt. We are going to be taking care of that safety, but it's about keeping the families together, working with them, strengthening the family, so we don't have to be there anymore. And everybody, the kids are safe, families have what they need. They are, what is it, self-reliant. They can empower themselves and do what they need to do without us being involved.
And I still see this even to this day. So I want to caution you all about this, about the child rescue philosophy, is because sometimes people think, well, the only way to do this is to rip a kid out of the home in order to keep them safe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't be creative. You just got to be looking at your safety planning to see, can it control whatever those issues are? And if so, that gives you a little bit more room to be able to work with your families and to get into that. But again, your assessment as to what the issues are will make that determination as to whether or not you can leave a kid in a home or not.
And again, old way, punishment made for lack of progress. Well, if you don't have 3 clean screens, you don't get to see your kid. Okay, who's that punishing, guys? Who does that punish? Anybody? The kids. Yeah, you're not punishing the parents, you're punishing the kids. What did the kids do wrong? And they could be in the worst situation ever in that family when we got involved. That doesn't mean these kids don't love and aren't attached to their parents. So now we want to focus on family strengths, so we can resolve the issue of concern. And again, advocate. If it is a drug thing and it does end up in court, advocate that visits are for kids and that you are going to make sure they're supervised. So maybe the judge will change their mind, and even if they don't have 3 clean screens, as long as it's being supervised and they're appropriate, they can still have their visits. but if you don't advocate, it's not going to happen. So, and then quantity, time with the family. It's quantity, um,
Quantity versus quality.
quality. Yep. Quality time is what we want now. Even if it's 20 minutes, if it was the best 20 minutes ever and they really had a great meeting, as opposed to having, an hour to where the parent was completely asleep the whole time and had no interaction with the kid. Why does that matter? It's the quality of that family visit. It's the quality time, not the quantity. All right. Any questions about the old model and the new model? What do you guys think about the changes about on the models? What do y'all think about it before we move to talk about the slide we have now? Somebody give me your opinion about the old model and the new model. What do you think? I'll even go back to all that. There's the old model, the new model. What do you got? What are your thoughts about these changes?
I do have an observation from working with a family that was involved with CPS, and they had so many, the kids weren't all able to be placed in the same home. They had been living with their grandparents and they had a kinship care. So they had supervised visits with their grandparents with the plan of reunification, and supervised visits with their biological parents, and visits with their siblings that they weren't in the home with. And they had visits 5 times a week. And then they want safe at home services in there too, and didn't understand why these kids were overloaded. And I think it became a situation of the kids' whole lives became that this stuff was all going on with their family. But that was just my observation.
That's the well-being that you were assessing and saying, okay, look, I mean, these kids are being pulled every which way
Mhm.
and they don't have a time to be a kid.
Right. That's exactly it. And the caregivers were just so, was so much CPS involvement and other members of their family, and they were starting to become a youth service case themselves, that it they were like, every time I came over, it was like, oh, well, she bumped into the coffee table and she's got a bruise here. And it was like a litany of every little thing this child did all day. And I was like, let her be a kid. I'm not looking at her as being abused here.
But that's the what they lived through. So they were afraid that you were going to report, all the other stuff. So they were focused still on the basic stuff, that they weren't able to move past because they were afraid if they did anything that it would result in this.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about that, is that if you live in constant dread about something, you think something's going to occur, but and you're just waiting for that hammer to drop.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this family had multiple people in their business several hours a day, every single day. That is so stressful.
It can be.
That would be, yeah, that would be.
But I mean, without really knowing all the reasons why they were involved, though.
This was just with the kinship family that I didn't work with the rest of the family yet. And my plan was to start working with the grandparents when we got to the point where we're getting closer to reunification. But at this point, the referral was just to work with the kinship family with the addition of these 2 younger kids.
Okay. But I think, as you all can see, when we have this model, the old and new, you can see more of it was driven by us. We were the dictators. We were the ones that were telling everybody how to do stuff. And then we realized, you know what? The family's not buying into this. They're not part of this process. So they're not progressing because they don't agree with what's there.
Yeah, they don't believe.
Maybe they're just at the point where it doesn't matter what I say, you're going to tell me what to do anyway, so they don't buy into any of this. So if you look at the changes, and this happens over time, we always seem to get better with what we're doing here and seeing why we want this. Again, we want them to be part of it because, again, when we're not in that home, how are they themselves going to be able to make those decisions and make those right decisions if we're, if they haven't had a chance to be able to be part of that decision-making process? So sometimes people have to learn.
Yeah. So again, I want to ask, what do you guys think about the changes from the old model to the new model? Is it a good change, bad change? Like it, don't like it? Agree with it, disagree with it?
Agree.
Okay, you agree, you like the new changes
Yeah, it just evolved into,
involved?
I mean, you saw what wasn't working, so they switched it up.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
I would say that the new one, and the old one, we were dictating and determining what they had to do, and in the new one, it's giving them options, maybe.
Maybe giving them a voice, giving the families a voice to say.
If I mean, we're giving them the options, either, these are some of the things that you could do,
Mhm.
or
Do you have an idea of what you could do? That maybe you as
yeah,
a worker may not even have thought of. And I'm like, hey, oh yeah, I never thought of that. That might could work, because the family may have some ideas that we might not have thought of as well. So
And,
yeah,
yep. And one thing I like about the new model is it incorporates the families in there into helping them learn that decision-making stuff with us, being there to assist them, to guide them, because not everybody is. I mean, when we get involved with families, it's always probably not in the greatest time of their lives. So they've had some issues, some things were going on, some things have been happening and stuff. So maybe they haven't made those right decisions and stuff, or they haven't thought about that. Or depending on the type of family that you may be working with, that they may not have that ability to forethink. So they may have to sit there, but learning how to do all those things and doing it. I always like to use the pros and cons model. Just to say, okay, let's think about this. Here's what is good about it. Here's what's bad about it. And then it gives them that opportunity to make that decision at the end as to do they or do they not want to do that. It's like right now, I mean, you all don't have to say anything. This isn't about being political or anything like that. The debate going on right now is, do you get the shot or not? And to each person, it means something different, right? And so people weigh their decisions as to whether they will or whether they won't. That's the same thing your families are going to be doing. They may not like it and all that, but they're weighing what's there and they're learning what is and what's not. And we're kind of being that person that's kind of helping them get through that. And I didn't mean to make that a but that was the only thing I could come think of right off the top of my head, that where people are struggling on saying yay or nay to something, and then having
exactly.
to understand what it is.
Yeah. All right. 4 values to good case management. So you as a case manager, you need to be responsive to the family and all the providers, any of these people, whether it's informal or formal. You need to be responsive. They call you, leave you a message, you need to respond. You got to be responsive in your interactions with them, in your response, returning phone calls, getting those weekly reports from those providers. If you've got kids in kinship, care, or maybe well, that would be out of home. They're not in kinship care because they'd be in home. But if you're using like in the Jenny Garrisons, the Garrison, Jenny is helping, Lisa next door is helping. You got to have conversations with them, and if they've got questions and they need to talk and they're leaving you messages and you're never calling them back, you're never responding to anything, how long do you think they're going to continue to be your safety resource in that family, for that family, if you never have contact with them and you don't call them back or you don't help them with things that they need? How long do you think they're going to stay and want to continue to be your safety resource for that family? Anybody? Are we typing? Everybody asleep? I can't see anybody, so I don't know what's going on.
I don't
How
know what's
likely?
going on.
Yeah, how likely is Jenny or Lisa going to stay that informal provider helping provide that safety for Jimmy if they've left you 5 or 6 messages in the past 3 weeks, you haven't returned one phone call, you haven't talked to them, you haven't met with them? How long do you think they're going to stay being that safety resource for you, for that family?
Not long.
Not long.
I mean, if they continue to be isolated from the CPS worker
Right.
and not, how often or how hard is it to get an in-home safety plan with 24-hour coverage?
Depends on the families, depends on what resources they have. But if you never ask and don't get that conversation going from the get-go, you're never going to know. I can tell you that I know of one situation where somebody had 12 people just to keep that family together, working around the clock to stay in at home to keep kids safe. Ultimately, it did fall apart. It didn't work. Somebody failed to do what they were supposed to do. But guess what? Reasonable efforts to keep that family together. They tried. They did try. So it didn't have to be a court case. They tried to keep them together. They did the reasonable efforts, but after a month or so, it failed, and they ended up having to file that petition and take the kids away. But they did try, and that's all we're asking is you at least try to do the least restrictive. Um, it depends on what resources each family has. You could have a best friend, a grandma, that's perfectly capable of staying there that 24/7, and while you have that case open, so we don't have to involve court. Then you may have some families that have nobody. They have nothing. They're the kind of people that move from county to county and really don't make connections anywhere. They hop state to state, county to county, and they may not have anybody. So it everybody's different. That's all I can tell you. And all families are different. They're all individuals. Could have a similar problem, and in one of them we may have to remove the kids right off the bat, and the other one in a similar family, we can do an in-home safety plan and it'll work for a while, and you could have another family that's got the same similar problems and you try to do an in-home, but they don't have any resources and we don't have anybody, so all we can do is place them out of the home, and it could be with kinship, it could be with grandma, but grandma can't be in the home and do it for some reason or another. So I mean it's all individualized. Guys, when you are that case manager, you got to back up your talk with that walk. You can say lots of things, but if you don't follow through, don't answer phone calls, don't make your appointments, you're going to be useless as a case manager because they're not going to trust you, and they're not going to want to work with you.
We don't want to get back into the old ways of having a case open on a family but not going out talking to them and all that, because that again is another reason why we've had these type of cases where kids are getting hurt and families are having issues and stuff, is because we're not going out there and responding to what the needs of the family is.
Yes. The next one was being capable. You need to be able to recognize that a family is the expert in their case. It's their family. They probably know their family better than you are going to know them. And you need to capitalize on their history, how they grew up, their past history, capitalize on any strengths they may have. And then, as you partner with that family for those solutions to their problems, you're going to stay on top of new trainings. You guys, you guys are going to have a lot to do as a case manager. You have to stay on top of new trainings, new research, any new educational things that have come out. You got to stay on top of that stuff as well. But when you're working with that family, they're the experts. So you need to learn from them, talk with them, and play on those strengths that they have to help create those solutions for their problems. So you're doing it together. That's going to maximize your time with your families. Um, It could mean, you know, an hour visit. It could mean a 20-minute visit. I mean, it depends. And again, that's preparing before you go out. What do you need to know when you go out to meet with this family? Why are you going out today? You know, is it just because, oh, I got to make my face-to-face at the end of the month? Or are you doing it because you actually are going to have a good conversation and, you know, find out some things that you need to find out? You want to continue working on self-care with the family also. And you have to remain emotionally objective. You cannot get emotionally involved, and sometimes it's going to be hard because you're going to get connections with certain families, certain kids, you know, are going to pull at your heartstrings more so than others. But you're going to have to try to remain objective. All this is going to safeguard our capability to make those difficult decisions that some of these families are going to need. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Okay. Being accountable. Somebody tell me what you think being accountable is as a case manager.
Doing what you say you're going to do.
Okay. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, good documentation.
Thanks, Patrick. Did I lose Zach and Sarah and Jocelyn? Because I think Jeff's about the only one that's been talking. So,
Zach has just, Zach's just been sitting there.
yeah, I was just wondering what happened to the rest of my CPS people. I mean, I hear Jeff a lot, and thank you, Jeff, for participating. I appreciate it. I just wonder what happened to the rest of my CPS people since I can't see anybody and I'm not hearing from any of them. I know Danielle is gone. So
I'm here.
Danielle, you're back.
That's
Was
Sarah.
that Sarah? That was Sarah. Okay. I don't think Danielle's going to be back today, but all right. So you are here. So what does accountable mean to you guys as a case manager? What does that mean to you guys? Tiffany says it means doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
following through on plans you make. You know, if
Okay.
you say you're going to meet a family at a certain time, be there at the time. Don't keep them waiting around.
You know, we expect our families to be accountable to us, right? To do what they say they're going to do. So they should be able to expect the same from you as the case manager. You know, follow through, being accountable, following through, showing up at your meetings on time. You know, don't, if every time you meet with Danielle Garrison, you're 10 minutes late every time, what's that say for you? You know, try to be on time, maybe even a little early.
And, you know, things happen, you know, your schedules change and all that, and you may have to, at the last minute, something pop up on and you have to go deal with it. But
Mhm.
make sure you call the family and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it out here. Don't leave them sitting.
Yeah, thinking you're coming.
Yep.
Because their time is important too, guys. You know, preventive. What does that mean, guys? Being preventive.
Starts with yeah.
Proactive.
Okay. All right. So in working good case management, you're going to exhaust all efforts, and you're going to do that through your modeling, through your coaching, your educating, your collaborating with all family members and all your providers, informal or formal, by collaborating and evaluating your family as part of this systemic prevention for future safety issues. That's going to help maybe prevent something, you know, happening, such as us having to take custody of the kids. You're working towards preventing custody, you know, of those kids being placed in DHHR, because this is what we're talking about, in-home case management. So you're doing all those things to prevent that from happening.
Yep. And it comes down to this too, is that you're showing reasonable efforts. You're showing everything you've done in order to try to keep these kids in the home and all. And when that you can no longer control the safety and do all that, then you have the documentation to show what you've done and why it's not working and why you had to take the step that you did.
Yes. Thank you, James. Anybody got any questions or comments about your 4 values to good case management?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right, now we got the 6 principles of partnership. Everybody desires respect. Do we agree or disagree with that? Give me a nice emoji or something that if you agree, a thumbs up if you agree, or if you disagree, something, something, I don't know what all was on your emojis now, I done forgot, but I know there's a thumbs up. So if you agree that everyone desires respect, give us a thumbs up. That way we know you're all here and paying attention. Remember, it's the bottom of the screen
And you can do your reactions.
under the reactions. That's where your thumbs up is.
I'm
And
gonna
I
say
don't know if this makes a noise or not when they do it, because I can't hear anything.
I don't either.
In Blackboard, it goes ding or something, and I know somebody's put something in
They're
the chat.
showing up on our little vignette videos of us.
Okay.
Yeah, up in the
Okay.
corner.
So
right.
it just doesn't, it used to be it would float up across the screen on Zoom, and now it's just in our little boxes.
Okay. So, all right. So everyone desires respect. Everybody has, self-worth. They have right to self-determination. They got a right to make their own decisions about their lives, unless they're putting somebody else in danger, right? Unless they're breaking the law. Do y'all agree with that?
Breaking the law.
Breaking the law. I know. Acceptance of this principle is going to lead one to treat clients with respect, and for you guys to honor families' opinions and their worldview. True partnership is impossible if you do not have mutual respect with your families.
And we're not talking about, on this, you can still have the respect needed to do the work and not like each other. Is that, you
True.
have that, authority where you all have a certain thing where you need to make sure things are being done, but you can have that mutual respect when it comes to that. So, like you'd said before, following through, doing the things you say you're going to do and all that, is respect something that you should get right off?
no, it's earned.
It's earned, but a lot of people demand it, right? Really, a lot of workers, when they come into it, some people would refer to it as the power gambit that the workers feel whenever they first become into here, because they think they have all this, and so they start using that, and they demand respect from the families, and families are like, I don't know you. So like you're saying, Patrick, you have to earn it. You have to build that rapport. You have to get to know them and do all that.
True. True. Somebody tell me what you think everyone needs to be heard. What do you think that means? What does it mean to you? Everyone needs to be heard.
They like people listening to them.
Okay.
We talked about it before. There's more than one way to reach a goal, so I think everybody's ideas should be heard about how to get there.
And if you feel like you're being heard, how does that make you feel? If I just ignored what you said, Jocelyn, and just acted like you didn't even say what you just said, how would that make you feel?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak up anymore or participate.
Exactly. When one feels heard and understood, then the defensiveness and resistance are going to be unnecessary. They're not going to put up those defenses. They're not going to be resistant to you. They're going to want to talk with you and get that partnership there and work with you and come up with some solutions because they feel like that you are listening. Empathic listening. Remember, guys, being empathetic, saying things. Oh, really? Uh-huh. So, and then repeating back what they said so that they know that you heard what they just said. Remember all those tools in interviewing, use those to show that that you're really listening to them and that you understand their point of view. Then that will lessen their defensiveness and they'll be less resistant or not even be resistant at all. Do you guys believe that everybody has strengths? Everyone has strengths, even if it's not very many or very little. Do we all agree that everybody has a strength of some sort?
Yeah, everybody's good at something.
Okay. this could result in, just because we walk in and see a family and you guys looked at that picture. Remember the picture with the mom holding the baby, a cigarette in her hand or on the table. Her other little kid was on the floor playing with pots and pans. Her cabinets were open with cleaners. There were dishes in the sink, but there was also dishes in the dish drainer. Something on the stove was cooking, and you guys had to find strengths for that mother. Uh, Looking at it, you guys could have found, all kinds of things that were, oh, it's unsafe. She's got a little kid there. They're going to get into the cleaning things and get poisoned. And she left the stove on. She's not paying attention to it. She's smoking a cigarette around the baby. You guys could have found all kinds of negative things, bad things going on in that picture. But the idea was to find, at least 5 strengths in that picture. And most of you did that, you know. She's providing shelter. She was providing nurturing to the baby. She was providing supervision. She had some strengths, right? Still had some concerns, but she had some strengths. So we need to recognize that all people have resources, that all people have past successes that we can use. Remember those miracle questions, past success questions. We did that as a activity. Those kind of questions you ask. Like Danielle Garrison. What was different when you had Lainey and Danny than now that you have Jimmy? You're saying you wish it was like it was before. What does before mean to you? Danielle had past successes. She raised 2 daughters, one up to 14 years old, with no issues, no problems. Everyone has some type of an ability, a talent, a dream, and that can provide raw material for solutions for our future successes with our families. So as you guys become involved with your families that you're working with, because of the problems that are going on, these problems can then become a filter that obscures our ability to see the strengths, and we can't let that happen. You've got to be able to take a step back and say, yeah, this is pretty bad situation, but let me see what I can find that's good. Because there's always something good, something, no matter how small, how minimal. It doesn't mean that you're going to ignore the problem that you see. It just means you need to work hard to identify some sort of strength that you can build on to help work with that family. So everybody agree that everybody has strengths somewhere, somehow.
Yep.
I got one. Yep. Okay. Do you guys think judgments can wait?
Judge. Yeah.
Should we be making judgments as soon as we meet the family?
No, it's going to kill rapport.
Yeah.
Well, and we never know why why X is happening. There may be a really good reason why X is happening.
True.
Mhm. I'll give you all an example that I've seen before and stuff like that, and just go in there. Worker gets a report that a child was born with drugs in their system. So what does the worker do? They go grab the car seat and say, hey, I'm going to go remove a baby. Have they already made a judgment?
Mm-hmm.
Without really knowing all the other stuff. So you should wait and say, okay, first, let's do the assessment, find out what's going on. And that may require them to do that, but at least don't pin it to where you've already committed and you've already thrown out any other possibilities or anything else or any other information because you already see it.
True. Because you as a caseworker, when you have judgments, it's going to have an immense impact on that, the family's life, period, the whole family. So it's only fair that you delay judgment as long as possible. Then you're only going to hold it lightly at that point, because you need to remain open to new information, gather all the information, ask those questions, be willing to change your mind if need be. And if you accept that judgments can wait, it doesn't mean that decisions regarding safety can't be made quickly, because they can be. But don't make a judgment on that family right off the bat. You know, gather that info. Partners share power. What do you think about that one? Got one more after that, guys, and then we can do our break.
I think you need to talk to my wife about that.
Partners share power. Okay. Anybody else?
Well,
Partners.
the, they both bring some kind of power or strength to the relationship, whether it's evident or not.
Okay. So this principle is going to be based on the premise that power differentials create obstacles to partnership. If we think about society confers power upon the worker. It's going to be the worker's responsibility to create a partnership with your family members, especially those who appear hostile, even if they're appearing resistance. They don't owe us their cooperation. Just like that respect and what Patrick said earlier, we have to earn their cooperation. You got to earn it. It's not going in there, oh, I see what you did to your kid. This is what's going to happen. If you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen. You're going to do what I tell you to do. That's not the kind of attitude we are supposed to be going into when we're meeting our families. And then partnership is a process. Do we agree about that? Do you think it's a process?
Always evolving.
Yes.
Okay. So we're looking at each of these 6 principles I just went over. You know, respect, the right to be heard, everyone having strengths, judgments can wait, partners share the power, and partnership is a process. Yes. All these are a part of a greater whole, hence the puzzle pieces there. You know, you got to have all these pieces to make a whole. They each provide support and strengthen the others. In addition, they also acknowledge that putting the principles into practice consistently might be hard. Acceptance of principles is not just going to be enough. It's going to require you guys to be intentional and place attention to practice and those principles. It's 11:02. I'm going to email you guys a classroom notebook 1. When we come back at 1 o'clock, we're going to put you guys in groups. And you're going to do these on your own, but then we're going to put you in small groups, and you guys are going to discuss, you know, what you guys did on it together, and then for a few minutes, and then we're going to come and discuss it all together. So I'm going to email this classroom notebook 1. It's called Child Welfare Values and Attitudes. So you're going to complete it on your own for homework between now and 1 o'clock, and then we'll put you in groups at 1 to discuss each other's answers, I guess, and then we'll talk about it together. Any questions?
Just come back in, I think this link, right, Tina?
Yeah, we'll come right back in here. Section 4. All right. Okay. Let me go get these out for them. I'm going to stop sharing, I guess. Maybe. If I can get my mouse back over here again. I'm struggling with this big old mouse. There he is. All
I
right.
guess you can stop the recording too,
Yep. Let me get that too.
because it won't let me do it.
I thought you were co-host.
I may be, but I guess if you start